Hello everyone. Now, this is as far as I got. Yesterday, so that's one end. And that's this end. So it's coming along with the, what you would call it, the area, which is this part. And there's a little doggy. A little bucky right there. So there's two, one to five, and then I go on to the next row. I'm doing it in rows this time. There you go. That's part of the house, so I am just working on the boat area. That must be one of them. Yeah, that's it. That's that bit done. Wow, it's freezing. That one must go there. There we go, and I've got one more there. It's fine, that one. So, I think I'll do the hardest parts first. So I'm going to try and get all this. I think that's the best way for me to do it. Even if it's a little parts of the tree. And chimney, of course. So chimneys in there somewhere. So I'm gonna get all the blue out of the way. That's what I want. That's what I want. Do 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 do. I think when they come in handy, huh? Ooh, ay, ay, ay. Yeah, excuse the noise. I will close the door 1 second. I need another pot. Right? That's better. And I thought that this bit, the river bit was hard. Let's see how I make up of the blue sky. Blue There's a lot of blue. I think I'll get on with that, and then it'll be easier then. That's what I want. Right, I probably end up coming across some more of the so I'm gonna use, I was gonna do some on grass as well, but no, might be after. I'll just stick with the sky. I think that'll be the hardest one of all. So today I'm just sorting out the parts that I know that's going to be difficult to do, so I'm going to do it strategy way. There, see? Whereas this one, I think. There you go. There. That's what I want. There it is. I'm gonna put criminal. That's what I want. Let's see if it's working. I believe in hearing those. Oh my god.
May have killed someone in her basement, but police could find no evidence of violence in the home. At the age when a popular The date, July 28, 1996. The place, 60 feet beneath the English Channel off the coast of Devon, England. A fisherman was about to haul in his nets. Just after dark on a warm summer evening, 5 children In 1998, a convenience store clerk in Lansing, Michigan was shot to death during a robbery. No one else was in the store at the time. But there was an eyewitness, a security camera. Unfortunately, the story it told was far from clear. Wanda Mason was a 48-year-old single mother of 3. She had worked in various cities across the country, trying, with mixed success, to build a stable life for her family. In 1987, she settled with her children in Lansing, Michigan. With money tight, she took a job at this convenience store gas station to make ends meet. About a year later, the owner decided to keep the store open 24 hours a day. Wanda Mason worked the very first overnight shift.
She was kind of struggling, and so when the gas station was looking for someone to work the overnight shift, it hadn't been open overnight for a while. Wanda just kind of jumped at it, and she worked the overnight shift so that she could be home with her family during the day and take care of her grandkids and that.
The store was located in a low crime area, but as a precaution, a security camera was installed before the first overnight shift. A fresh videotape was unavailable, so workers used an old worn-out tape until they could buy a new one. At 4:18 in the morning, a group of customers entered the store to pay for gas and found Wanda Mason in a pool of blood behind the counter. They called 911.
911. We just came in here and there's a lady that's bleeding to death. I don't know if she got robbed or what.
Is she conscious or
She's bleeding to death. I don't know if she's dead or what.
By the time emergency personnel arrived, Wanda Mason was dead with a single gunshot wound to the head. A spent .22 caliber long shell casing was next to the body. Police were surprised when Wanda's
Yes, I know you need batteries. Do that in a minute.
they arrived. He showed up before police notified the family.
We got there was people there, and they told us that there was a lady laying behind the counter, so we went around back of the counter, and my mom was laying there, and
showed that Wanda Mason had been killed for $351. Strangely, Wanda told family members just
Be right back.
days earlier that she was not afraid to work the night shift because she had a plan in case she was robbed.
If anybody came in to rob the gas station, because we discussed her working the overnight shift, I said, well, I would just give them the money and get them out of there, you know, and deal with it later.
She said that if somebody tried to rob her, that she would help them carry it to the car. It wasn't her money, and it wasn't worth her dying over. It wasn't no concern of hers. You know, that's the business's problem, not hers, and that was her whole outlook on it. It's not my money, and I'm not dying for it.
Police questioned everyone in the neighborhood and searched the store for clues.
We had officers set up a perimeter, and we got a canine track going. Now, a couple blocks away, officers spotted a guy running down the road with a paper bag in his hand, coming from the direction of the store. So they detained him and brought him back to the office so that we could talk to him. We were hoping that we had already got our guy.
The suspect, a 20-year-old African-American, was brought in for questioning. Was the security camera video clear enough to identify whether the suspect was the killer? When Wanda Mason was murdered in the convenience store where she worked, detectives turned to their one and only witness, the security video camera. Full-action video is made up of 30 frames per second, but this security video was designed in time-lapse mode, which is only 4 frames per second. The result is an unstable image, which was compounded by the fact that it was recorded on an old, badly degraded videotape. Police sent the tape to Ed Cheney at Future Media Corporation.
When we played it, some of the pictures shifted and distorted, making the whole video sequence look unusable. But when we transferred the videotape to a broadcast video machine, we could then isolate the good images from the bad.
On the left-hand side of the screen, the tape shows a car pulling up to the store at 3:49 a.m. A man wearing a dark jacket enters the station and appears to be casing the area. He seems to notice Wanda Mason working in a back room. He then leaves without buying anything. 10 minutes later, the same man returns, this time with the hood of his jacket over his head. He goes straight to the back room beyond the range of the security camera. At gunpoint, he forces Wanda to the front counter. She opens the cash register, and the man takes the money. He then steps back as if he's leaving. Trembling with fear, Wanda hides her face in her hands. Then, the man puts the gun to Wanda's head and fires. He lowers his hood, walks out of the store while stuffing the long-barreled pistol into his coat. Police had a suspect in custody, a man found running away from the scene with a bag in his hand. But the bag did not contain the stolen money, but candy, and he didn't have a gun. The young man said he was running from the scene because, as a young African American, he feared he would be wrongfully arrested. And he was right. The image on the videotape, though degraded, did not look like the suspect.
We compared the guy on the tape to the guy we had in custody at that time, and it was pretty obvious that they were not the same guy, so we had to cut him loose. And we felt like we had just taken our first giant step backwards in the investigation.
Investigators still had two pieces of evidence: the spent shell casing and the degraded image on the security camera videotape. With this image, police sketch artist Rod Sadler drew this composite drawing of the suspect. 3 days after the murder, it was released to the press.
Police say that early Saturday morning, this man entered the Marathon gas station in Holt and shot Wanda point blank in the head.
Tips poured into the police. But since the composite drawing of the suspect was based on the scratchy videotape image, it was difficult to know which tips were relevant and which were not.
When this case started,
See you
out,
later,
all we
my
had
sweet.
was the video. And you've seen the video, and if that's all you have, you're not feeling very good about your chances of ever resolving this case.
And while police continued their investigation, they were also suspicious of Wanda Mason's son, Donnie Warren. The videotape shows him highly agitated after seeing his mother's body. Investigators wondered why he was in the store in the middle of the night, just moments after the murder, before police had time to notify the family.
He showed up at the scene 10 minutes after the shooting. The police interviewed him, of course, immediately. He advanced the notion that the perpetrator was black, but how could he possibly have known that? That information had not been made public.
And one of the customers who found Miss Mason's body told us that Donnie was running around the front of the store saying, "I'm going to kill that kid." How did he know it was a lone black male when we hadn't even reviewed the tape yet?
Police discovered that Donnie Warren was unemployed with very little money. On the night of the murder, he was out drinking at a strip club.
We theorized that Donnie Warren may have met the killer at the Topless Bar where he and his buddies had been hanging out that night and spending money that they probably couldn't afford to spend. Knowing that his mother would not resist a robbery, that store may have seemed like an easy target where they could hit the store, split up the money, and he would get hurt.
Tips continued to pour in from people who thought they recognized the composite sketch. The question for police was whether this man was simply a random killer or someone connected to the victim's son.
Conscious at all? Is she conscious or
She's bleeding to death. I don't know if she's dead or what.
Police suspected that Wanda Mason's murder was a random act of violence. But police were suspicious when Wanda's son happened to walk into the store at 4 o'clock in the morning, just moments after the shooting.
Donnie and his friends just happened to show up a little too conveniently, right after the robbery, as if to console his mother.
Donnie denied having anything to do with his mother's murder, and he said his statement that an African-American must have murdered his mother was simply an unfortunate remark. Nothing more than speculation said in anger. Police received a tip from a woman who said she recognized the police composite sketch of the killer on television. She identified the man as Ronald Leon Allen, her former boyfriend who lived in the nearby town of Jackson. Ron Allen was a small-time criminal with prior arrest for assault and drug activity. His mugshot resembled the police sketch and the individual on the security camera videotape.
We found out that Ronald Allen was a suspect in a shooting in Jackson, and the Jackson police had 2 .22 caliber shell casings from the shooting. We took those shell casings and the shell casing that we found near Wanda Mason's body to the crime lab to see if they may have been fired from the same gun.
Analysts said that the casings appeared to be from the same gun, but the only way to be sure was to test fire the actual gun for comparison, and police couldn't find it. Police also looked for a link between Ron Allen and Donnie Warren.
We tried everything we could think of to connect Donnie Warren to Ronald Allen, and every time we came up short. So we decided to put Donnie on the back burner and concentrate all our efforts on Ronald Allen.
Was Ron Allen the shooter? And could the videotape identify him? Allen was 5 feet 3 inches tall. What was the height of the shooter in the videotape? To find out, detectives went back to the store to recreate the murder. With gradated height charts set up around the store, and using the door and sunglass display as reference points, a height test was conducted using the same security camera, set at the same angle with the same framing that recorded the actual murder. When the test video was compared to the murder video, it showed that the shooter was 5 feet 4 inches tall. Ron Allen's mugshot was taken when Allen was in his stocking feet. With shoes, Allen would stand 5 feet 4 inches. Ron Allen voluntarily agreed to take a polygraph test.
Did you have anything to do with what is happening in the pictures? No.
He failed. At this point, police needed to make sure that Ron Allen was the man in the security videotape.
One of the things that we have encountered time and time again is we have a small business owner, and certainly they have limited resources, and they feel that they get some kind of protection by having a video camera set up, a security camera set up in the business. And certainly that should work as a deterrent to some criminals. But when someone commits a crime anyway, if you have cheap or substandard equipment, it's not going to be much help with any law enforcement.
Once processed and transferred, investigators got a little better look at the killer. But would it be good enough? Even though investigators had a better image of Wanda Mason's killer, it still wasn't clear enough to make a positive identification with their suspect. The images were sent to Dr. Ron Carpinella at Veridian, an image reconstruction firm that worked to repair the digital images from the Hubble Space Telescope. Those pictures from outer space were badly flawed, but video reconstruction transformed those inferior images into viewable ones.
Well, there was an opportunity to take some of our technology that was developed under NASA and Department of Defense funding and apply it to a local problem.
The first step was to reduce the distortion in the images from the security videotape by building mathematical models of each image. These models identify the excess extraneous information, which is then eliminated, leaving only the essential information behind.
It's like focusing a camera.
Yes.
The process we were involved in. We had a set of algorithms that sharpen the image, be that it's focusing the camera, or equivalently, it's like taking the thumbprint off your eyeglasses, clearing them up such that you can see high definition what you're looking at.
Investigators now had a clean image, but the pictures were shot from a distance. In order to match the pictures to their suspect, investigators turned to forensic anthropologist Dr. Norm Sauer. He applied a technique called photo-skull superimposition. He took the mugshot of the suspect, Ron Allen, and superimposed it over the image taken from the security camera.
And what we were able to do is superimpose images on one another and compare aspects of morphology to evaluate the likelihood of identification. Morphological features included things like the shape of the face, the shape of the eyes, the shape of the root of the nose was an important feature in this case, the distance from the root of the nose to the hairline.
Slowly, the images were laid on top of one another and revealed the identity of Wanda Mason's killer.
What he did was he identified the certain unique characteristics in the face in the video, which makes us each look different from anybody else. And he was able, by focusing on those different aspects of the face that are unique to an individual, was able to identify a mugshot of Ronald Allen as the perpetrator.
Prosecutors feared that defense lawyers would challenge the use of the processed videotape for identification. The only other evidence was the .22 caliber long shell casing found at the scene. Ron Allen's cousin was looking through some of Allen's stereo equipment when he noticed something behind the speaker cover. A long-barreled .22 caliber Ruger handgun.
We took the gun straight to the State Police Crime Lab, where a test confirmed that it was the gun that was used in both Wanda Mason's murder and Stephen Dress, and that was great news.
Police also discovered that Ron Allen owned an Oldsmobile Cutlass automobile that had been customized with expensive chrome wheels and a chrome rear view mirror. These same customized features could be seen on the vehicle outside of the convenience store after electronic enhancement. Ronald Allen was charged with first-degree murder. Police were satisfied that Donnie Warren had nothing to do with his mother's murder.
I was innocent, and there was no way they could possibly ever say that I wasn't. And, I have faith in our justice system. I believe that, I know there is those few innocent people that slip through the cracks, but for the most part, if you're innocent, you'll be found innocent. They can only put you in prison if they have evidence, and when you're innocent, there is no evidence.
At the trial, the reconstructed video images provided a chilling account of the murder. The images were clear enough for a jury to look into Ronald Allen's eyes and see for themselves.
For me, I went through a whole range of just wanting him to die to wanting him to God only knows what, to now I'm kind of okay because I know life in prison ain't too awfully great.
All we had was the video. And you've seen the video, and if that's all you have, you're not feeling very good about your chances of ever resolving this case. But because of the tips, because of the work of Veridian and Future Media, and the interpretation and the abilities of Dr. Sauer, what we thought was nothing turned into enough that could have made the case itself.
Ronald Allen was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. A measure of justice made possible by old-fashioned police work and the latest in forensic technology.
I really don't think Wanda's family knows how lucky they are that they got justice in this case. It's kind of ironic that the one thing that was supposed to make this easier for us turned out to be such a nightmare. Business owners have to understand that if they're going to use security equipment, they have to buy good equipment, they have to keep it clean, use new videotapes, and have good lighting so that we can get a good view of the suspect.
Put the panel
They've
up,
overlapped
freaking marked
to
it.
the employees,
But it won't
police
matter.
agencies, and to the public.
Oh,
I want people to know that Wanda was a good person that was doing a job to take care of her family,
Jimmy.
and she
Sorting
died
the sky out from the thingy.
for no reason, no
Ah, good choice.
I am so
Good
glad that
idea.
Ronald Allen's in prison for the
What are
rest
you
of
up
his
to?
life.
I know you're up to no good,
Mason
cat.
probably doesn't know the lengths and the detail and the creativeness that went into this conviction. They don't have to know.
Having a born
And
in
it's
a minute.
not our position in law enforcement to go.
So I'm doing what you said for dinner and cooking meatloaf at the same time.
Have elected me
Yeah?
and the sheriff to protect them. They
But
have
I'm going to cook the
elected us
meatloaf
to
so
arrest
it can be
criminals,
sliced.
and they have elected
Yeah.
me to do my best to convict
You know,
them.
round, so it's like burgers.
That was done in
So I want
this
to do it that way.
and that's all that they
Yeah?
need to know. That's what our job is, and we did our job.
Oh, yeah, I've got you on. Some viewing stuff. Yeah, I did the last cut of the panel and the fucking blade skipped across the bloody glass, didn't it? Marked it all. But I don't know what I'm doing to yours. Am I cutting a circle in it or what? Or just a normal small square?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Look, right, I'll just do a normal small square. In yours then. Alright. So about, say, that big, like that. You know,
Yeah.
nothing massive.
Yeah,
Yeah?
nothing massive, no.
Just so you can see in,
At the start
you know,
of the fall semester in 1995,
because you can always pull the side off anyway to show.
23-year-old college co-ed Tina Bigger was reported missing.
Yeah,
She
you've
had been
been
working
bottom.
on
What are
a
you doing in the bottom of the
research
boat?
project studying
You nearly
the
got all the
health
water.
risks of high-priced call
Cool.
girls in Detroit.
Cool.
But she soon discovered
Okay, Kitty.
that prostitutes
There
face
it is.
more than health risks
Did
in
you
their
get her
job.
treats today?
No.
They face the possibility of violence.
Just as you was talking about that piece, I've just found it. Oh right, okay. I'll get them tomorrow then.
Yeah. Yes, I know. Oh, you're so hard done to, aren't you? You was eating a full lamb dinner. Yes, I know, princess. You spoilt rotten.
Tina Bigger was a 23-year-old psychology
Excuse
major
me.
about to enter her senior year at Oakland University
Nice.
outside of Detroit. She was raised in a military family, and friends knew her as vivacious and hardworking.
Tina Bigger was the all-American girl. She came from a Coast Guard family. Her father was a Coast Guard commander. Her mother was a registered nurse.
The people who knew Tina and who were closest to her knew her as a very fun-loving, dedicated student, well-liked by all her peers and colleagues. And,
You know, I mean that
very much
one.
beloved by her family.
This
a great
one.
big sister, a great daughter.
Tina worked her way through school as a waitress at the Rochester Chop House. And lived with her boyfriend, Todd Nernberger,
You don't
in
want
an
it.
upscale apartment complex not far from school. Todd Nernberger was a student at the University of Michigan. The two had an on-again, off-again relationship, and friends weren't sure whether it would work out.
Oh, you got it.
Tina also
It's all of
had
it.
another side to her. She could
They're all
be
going back in the
distrustful.
cupboard.
She could be vengeful. She had a temper at times too. This was a Tina that not a lot of people who knew her saw.
Tina was conducting a research project for
Still making Thai green curry.
No
survey
fucking
of
way.
sexual history and health practices among women employed as escorts.
What are you doing with them now?
She wanted to find out if high-priced call girls and street prostitutes
Good
had the
girl.
same knowledge of sexually
Yeah, going
transmitted
back.
diseases.
She decided that she wanted to do her own study. She thought it would help her get into a good graduate school, and she decided to study high-class call girls and their awareness of AIDS, and then she was going to compare the two.
On August 23rd, 1995, Todd left for work. He said Tina was still asleep when he left. When he returned home that night, she was gone. Todd immediately phoned police.
Usually, missing persons, the case is wrapped up within a couple days, maybe even a couple of hours. Usually phone calls could be made to determine where the person is or where they've been.
But from the start, this case was different. Tina's car was gone. None of her personal belongings were missing from the apartment. None of Tina's friends had seen or heard from her. And police also discovered that Tina was planning to move into her own apartment without Todd.
The fact that Tina was looking to move to another apartment, was actually in the process of looking to get into another apartment, led me to think that there was something wrong. That maybe I need to talk to Todd a little bit further about what was happening in their lives. Maybe that there was something I was missing.
Police learned that Tina found evidence that Todd was seeing another woman. And in an unexpected twist, police discovered that Tina was hiding some secrets of her own. 23-year-old psychology student Tina Bigger was a hard-working honor student who friends say had a promising career ahead of her. She disappeared without a trace shortly before the fall semester at Oakland University outside of Detroit. When her boyfriend Todd Nernberger called police to report her missing, police were naturally suspicious. The two had an on-again, off-again relationship. A few months earlier, Tina found a suggestive greeting card to Todd from another woman and realized that Todd had been unfaithful.
People had seen them fight sometimes. He was very devoted, but sometimes they had a very combustible relationship. He spent more time with her than anyone else. He probably knew her better than anyone else. He would seem like a natural suspect.
Despite their differences, Todd Nernberger denied any involvement in Tina's disappearance. Tina worked as a waitress at the Rochester Chop House.
Did Tina Bigger show up for work last night?
When Todd called to see if she had reported to work, he was told that Tina had quit her job 4 months earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
Tina said nothing about quitting her waitressing job and had continued to launder her waitressing outfits as if nothing had changed. Todd searched their apartment, looking for some clue as to where Tina might have gone. Todd found a duffel bag he had never seen before. Inside were condoms, thigh-high stockings, lingerie, sexual lubricants, credit card slips, and envelopes addressed to the LA Escort Service with the name Crystal in the upper left-hand corner.
Hello? Do you have a girl that works for you named Tina Bigger?
The owners of the LA Escort Service said they didn't know anyone by the name of Tina Bigger, but they said that Crystal was the name of one of their more popular escorts. Escort services operate in most large cities and offer female companionship to men in return for fees ranging from $150 to $300 per hour. Among the services provided is usually sex. Todd now began to suspect that Tina had been living a secret life as a high-priced call girl.
She decided she was going to do a study of high-class call girls and their awareness of AIDS. And she began contacting services, asking if she could talk to girls. She started doing that, and I think in the process became sort of enamored with what they were doing. I think in part it was the money. She was broke. She had maxed out her credit cards. She needed a new car. She had to pay for school. The money they make is a lot more than you make working at a steakhouse. At one point, she was making $250 for an appointment.
Maybe women have a fantasy about themselves. Maybe all women do, and maybe she lived it out. I think she had a fantasy about herself. I think she wanted more attention in kind of a distant way. And being a call girl, she was getting it, because that's the kind of attention you get. Maybe it gave her power.
See you later, Linda.
After initially denying it, the escort service eventually admitted what Todd already suspected, that Tina Bigger worked as an escort with the professional name of Crystal. They also revealed that Tina worked for 2 other escort services and had dozens of clients. That also meant dozens of possible suspects. The investigation into Tina Bigger's disappearance revealed a dark secret. For the past year, Tina had been working as a high-priced call girl.
It was probably very important for Tina to keep this information or what was going on in her life away from her boyfriend, because she was living with him. He knew so much about her, but at the same time, if he had determined that she was involved with an escort service, actually working for one, obviously that would have caused a great deal of havoc in his life and their lives together.
He naturally was despondent. At one point, he even considered killing himself with a gun that he had. But he called some friends, they talked him out of it, and he decided basically that he was going to do whatever needed to be done, that he owed it to Tina to get to the bottom of what had happened to her.
Records from the escort service revealed numerous requests for Tina's services from a man named Ken Tranchita. Their first meeting took place at the Bluebird Motel just 12 days before Tina's disappearance. Among Tina's personal items found in her apartment was a love letter from Ken.
Dear Tina, my heart is yours for you to keep. Your love will lift me off my feet. You came to me, your love so willing. I know it's worth all our waiting. Love, Ken.
When police entered Ken Tranchita's apartment, they noticed the name Crystal on some artwork attached to his refrigerator. A local car dealer said Tina was with Ken Tranchita looking at new cars together.
You like it? Well, if you want it, it's yours.
And that Ken had offered to loan her money for the car. Ken Tranchita was a 42-year-old ex-convict with a history of passing bad checks, forgery, fraud, embezzlement, and theft. He was not the wealthy businessman he portrayed to Tina.
Sort of a drifter, a loner, was a petty thief and a petty con man type of a person. He held down some menial jobs, but not for very long.
I thought he was just like kind of a little weasel, really. I don't know how else you would describe him. He had kind of a little voice, and he was sort of pathetic, really. He just was a guy who probably thought Tina was going to be his girlfriend or something.
Tranchita admitted meeting Tina Bigger, whom he first knew as Crystal, through the escort service. He said they later met without the agency knowing, and that Tina stopped charging him for their sexual liaisons since the two had become friends. He told police that he had driven Tina to the airport just 1 week earlier for a flight to Ohio, where she was going to service a client. A check of flight log showed no record of Tina Bigger on any flight to Ohio. Ken said Tina left her car with him for safekeeping while she was away. When police asked to inspect the car, Tranchita willingly obliged. Inside, police found names and addresses of more escort service clients, along with directions to their homes.
We had learned through paperwork found in her car and through the escort service that she actually had contact with people that were living out of the country. They were living out of state. So it was possible that she could have just taken off, gone someplace.
Although the trunk was filled with debris, a preliminary search found no evidence of foul play. Research shows that most first-time killers dispose of their victims' bodies in locations the killer is familiar with. So police used cadaver dogs to search areas near Tranchita's home. Michigan State Trooper Richard Hitu works with Kai, a veteran cadaver dog trained specifically to find human bodies. To train the dogs, the troopers hide a small sample of human tissue or fluid in their wooded training area.
The dog isn't rewarded for finding animal remains, but they're rewarded for finding human remains. So they're going to dig around a lot harder and look a lot harder because they're working for that reward.
Trooper Hitu and Kai searched wooded areas around Ken Tranchita's rented home, as well as the grounds of a nearby monastery where Tranchita often walked. Although they searched hundreds of wooded acres, they found nothing. With no evidence to hold Ken Tranchita, he was released from police custody. It was a mistake police would soon regret. After police questioned Ken Tranchita about the disappearance of Tina Bigger, he was released because of a lack of evidence. Even though they suspected he knew more about her whereabouts than he had told them. It was clear that Ken's relationship with Tina was more than just business. Since a love letter from Ken was found in Tina's belongings, and Ken had promised to loan Tina the money for a new car.
Was he going to help her get a car? He made promises. He was probably telling her things to maybe make her hang on to him. Maybe she was making him think that they were friends, just to kind of get some of these things taken care of.
With no other leads, police decided to take a second look inside Tina's car. To their embarrassment, what they first thought were coffee stains on the side of a cup now appeared to be blood. And when they peeled back the trunk carpet, they found a pool of blood on the right-hand side. DNA tests revealed the blood belonged to Tina Bigger.
The investigation was already being looked at as a homicide, more so than perhaps another case might have been. But once they found that blood, there was really no question.
The amount of blood in the trunk pointed to murder, and since the car had been in Ken Tranchita's possession since Tina's disappearance, he was the prime suspect. But by this time, Ken Tranchita had vanished. Police finally got a break in the case 1 month after Tina Bigger disappeared. Ken Tranchita's brother suggested that police search a deserted home once owned by his aunt. The home was just 10 miles from Tina Bigger's apartment. In the woods, in the backyard, police found the badly decomposed body of a young woman. Since there were no pools of blood near the body, this told forensic scientists that the murder had taken place somewhere else. An analysis of dental records later revealed the body was that of Tina Bigger. Since the decomposition started in the neck area, the coroner suspected Tina had been strangled, since decomposition begins in the areas where there is bleeding at the time of death.
It was an unnatural cause of death. There was no fracture anywhere in the head area. So neck has to be a place where the event happened, and we call it a neck trauma. I could not identify specifically. Neck was slashed, she was strangled, she was smothered. I cannot say that. But it has to be a neck injury, and that was the conclusion.
A nationwide manhunt for Ken Tranchita was now underway. Tranchita was eventually spotted in a rundown neighborhood in downtown Detroit. Police closed in, Ken made a weak attempt at slitting his wrists in the bathroom before giving himself up. After several hours of police interrogation, Ken Tranchita finally admitted that he and Tina had an argument over money.
You don't have the money to loan me, do you?
Of course I have the money.
I don't believe you.
The money is coming.
They had struggled, and Tina fell, hitting her head, and died. But X-rays of Tina's skull contradicted that scenario.
She did not have any skull fracture anyway. If she bled inside of the skull, I would have seen some blood staining inside of the skull, which was not present.
Although Tina may have suffered a head wound, as evidenced by the blood found in Tina's trunk, the wound was probably not fatal. When Tranchita was confronted with this information, his statement shocked police.
What he said was, Tina was just so miserable in those last days that I made a sudden decision to end it for her and put her out of her misery. The minute the police heard that statement, they thought, holy Jesus.
I pled guilty, Your Honor.
Ken Tranchita accepted a plea bargain and pled guilty to second-degree murder. Tina's family, reluctant to have Tina's double life made public, agreed to the deal. Prosecutors believe when Tina discovered Ken had lied to her about having the money to buy the new car, the two fought. Tina struck her head and was later strangled or smothered to death. Ken placed Tina's body in the trunk of her car, then dumped the body in the woods near his aunt's home. It was a tragic end to an unfortunate story. Ken Tranchita was sentenced to life in prison. Ironically, while Tina was living a life of deception, she too was deceived by Ken Tranchita, a con man offering the promise of a big loan.
If Tina was brought into this double life under some kind of illusion that it was going to be like a scene from Pretty Woman, and Richard Gere was going to come rescue her and, bring her wonderful gifts, and she was going to fall into this opulent lifestyle, that's not the reality of the call girl world. You can meet up with some very desperate characters and some very bizarre characters. In this case, unfortunately, the person that she met up with was not Richard Gere, it was Ken. And where Tina ended up, lying in that field, is more the reality than the movie, I think.
She chose to cross the line, and she paid the ultimate price, which is what all of us as parents guard against and fear the most, I think, for our children.
And I believe by telling Tina Baker's story that we sent a message to other girls who might be in the business, to other young women who might be thinking of going into the business, to young women who might think they can tease or play a little bit with a world that they don't belong in. I think that sends a message that you're asking for trouble, that you could end up in a situation that you can't handle, that you could end up dead.
In 1995, Carolyn Killaby of Vancouver, Washington, got into a heated argument with her husband. She then went to a local bar alone. No one has seen or heard from her since. But some saliva from an envelope and a speck of blood on a wristwatch helped solve the mystery of her disappearance. 1990, Carolyn and Dan Killaby were married, each for the second time. Dan managed a furniture store. Carolyn was a medical technician employed by the U.S. military. Carolyn and Dan each had a daughter from their previous marriages, and they moved into this home in Vancouver, Washington.
My mom was basically the backbone of my whole family. I mean, she was very strong-willed, and she held everybody together. She was the problem solver, she was the supporter, she was the happiness, the joy. She was just like everything you could ask for.
On Saturday night, November 11th, 1995, Carolyn and Dan got into an argument.
She'd been in a fight with her husband because her husband had decided, instead of doing something with her that night that she counted on, they were going to go out. He was going to go out with his brother and have some food and drink. And she objected significantly to that. And I don't know whether she stomped out of the house and drove over there or how that transpired, but she ended up at Omar's and she was doing some serious drinking there.
A waitress said Carolyn was dancing, but was there alone and was obviously intoxicated.
The other indication was that she was alone at the table and that her head was down and that she had her head on the table and was basically passed out at the table, not functioning, not talking to anyone. Very, very clear to everyone in the bar that she was highly intoxicated.
That night, around 11 o'clock, witnesses said they saw Carolyn leave the bar, and she was never seen again.
I came home Sunday morning and she was gone.
The next day, Dan Killaby called police to report Carolyn missing. Family members, friends, and volunteers searched the surrounding area without success.
I knew that she would not leave unless somebody made her. There was no way she would have left us.
She is really the light of the family. Her personality, her kindness. Sorry.
Carolyn's car was found in the bar's parking lot. The Killaby family hired their own search dogs. The dogs tracked Carolyn's scent from the bar directly back to her home. The police believed this might be evidence that Carolyn returned home from the bar before she disappeared. No one else was home that night. Dan and the two girls spent Saturday night elsewhere.
Well, they were concerned about whether or not Dan's alibi that he was out drinking with his brother was solid. And I think that they stayed out real late and got real drunk. And so the police were not 100% convinced that that could have been the case.
Creating further suspicions was the fact that Carolyn had a $230,000 life insurance policy payable to her husband.
I always stood behind Dan. There was no doubt that I could never conceive the idea that he had actually done something like this.
Dan Killaby denied any involvement in his wife's disappearance, but police discovered there were problems in the marriage.
We found out that it wasn't the perfect marriage by any stretch of the imagination. I think we figured that there were some difficulties and some strains in the marriage.
2 hours after Carolyn left the bar, the police received 2 calls from people who said they heard a woman screaming for help in a field about a mile from Omar's Lounge. Police searched the area using night vision goggles, but they found nothing. With no solid leads, the Killaby family offered a $10,000 reward for any information on Carolyn's whereabouts. And then, a bombshell. A customer at Omar's Lounge said he saw Dan Killaby with Carolyn in the parking lot on the night she disappeared. 34-year-old Carolyn Killaby didn't return home after spending a night drinking at a local bar. Her husband, Dan, was an immediate suspect. Prosecutor David Seeley says there's an old saying in missing persons cases: before you look at outlaws, you have to look at the in-laws.
One of the things they look at to begin with is a husband in a missing person case like this, because I think a large percentage of the crimes are committed by family members.
Police found no evidence of foul play in the Killaby home. But in Carolyn's bedroom, they found some potent painkillers, Vicodin.
My sister was having some problems with prescription drug medication, and I had confronted her and talked to her about that. She had to acknowledge the problem and was working on that, and the whole family was being supportive of that.
My understanding of the mixture of alcohol and Vicodin is it makes you comatose, and that's exactly what happened to Carolyn when she was in the bar.
Witnesses at Omar's Lounge say that Carolyn passed out at her table.
Hey, baby. How you doing?
One of the regular customers, Dennis Smith, helped her to her car. What Smith told police was disturbing. He said that he and Carolyn left the bar and engaged in consensual sex in his truck. As he walked her to her car, a man approached them, hit Smith with a bat, called Carolyn a bitch, and forced her to leave with him. When shown a photographic lineup, Smith identified Carolyn's husband, Dan, as the culprit. Dan Killaby angrily denied this. He offered to take a lie detector test and passed. Dan Killaby said he and his brother were out drinking together that night in a bar, which the bartender there confirmed. When police looked closer into Dennis Smith's background, they discovered that Smith had been convicted for the murder of his sister, Patricia Ann Johnson, in 1982. Smith served 10 years of that sentence and had recently been released on parole. And the witness told police that she saw mud on Smith's truck on the night Carolyn disappeared.
I'll be live later on. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be live around 10:30 UK time. And I'll see you then. Lots of love. Bye everybody.